Okay, moving into this week's parsha. Eyleh, Toldot, hashamayim, and that's the name of the parsha, right? We take the first few significant words. That's how the parsha is named. Literally, it says these are it's something like generations. The root here is yalad. Yalad, like a yalad is a baby, right? Like a child. And yalad is to give birth, right? If a woman does it, it means to give birth. If a man does it, it means to sire, right? Like to sire a child. And so this is a noun from that, toledah. Toldot, it has a lot of meanings. It really, context is king on this word. So toldot can be like registrations. You know, like when the levies would register, or when other people would register for the army, it'd be the toldot, their registrations. It can be genealogies, the genealogy. So it has to do, which is also a kind of registration, right? In the Hebrew mindset, that the families, they register their names. They're organized by B'nai Av, by ancestral clans, like that, and also all the way up to Matot, by tribes. It can also just mean something like, this is actually an idiom that's used all throughout Genesis, mostly just Genesis, one place in Numbers, one place in, I think, Deuteronomy, but it's all throughout Genesis. We get this Toldot, meaning something like, this is the story. This is what happened, right? This has been registered in the heavens, what has happened. According to the Jewish scholar Sarna, in his JPS commentary, he says, such is the story. That's how he translates. The Eyleh Toldot formula is one of the distinguishing characteristics of the book of Genesis. Hashamayim the haarets. And you see how I have these two guys colored in yellow here? Here we have the heavens and the earth, and then here we have haarets v'shamayim, earth and the heavens. This is demonstrating there's a little bit of poetry finagling happening here. This is called a chiasmus, or chiasm. Where is it at? There he is. And it's when you basically take one element and you reverse it later on, right? It's a way that the author is showing you these things are included together. They're related somehow. Now, coming back to the Eyleh, Qimchi comments on this, that the word Eyleh refers to the phenomena mentioned during the 6 days of creation, the things we already had in last week's parasha. Even though we have been told that God created the universe, as is clear from the verbs vayvara and vaya'as, all referring to God himself doing these things, so where did the derivatives, Toldot, come from? So look at this. So Qimchi is looking at this Toldot, and he's considering that these are like derivatives. The derivatives. The Torah means that indeed God had created all of these, but he had employed intermediaries, i.e., heaven and earth, to whom he had issued directives. In Bereshit Rabbah, that's the Midrash 12:7, we are told, L'chol yesh toldot. Everything has derivatives. L'chol means belonging to all. Yesh exists toldot, derivatives. So that's another take on the word. That this is very interesting from a perspective of biology and life cycle and this kind of stuff. So Qimchi, this guy, centuries ago, is saying that God started mechanisms in the heavens. He understands this from this phrase, Eyleh Toldot. And again, he's nuancing it from Bereshit Rabbah, Midrash Rabbah. That it means that God started mechanism. He started biological laws into place, which would then develop, that would then do the work that he commanded them. So the intermediaries, it's not saying he's using angels or something, but he's primed the pump, so to speak. You understand? That's what Qimchi is pulling out from this, from just this Eyleh Toldot hashamayim haarets, that in the atmosphere and in the earth itself, God has injected it with a command. Here, I see this as here are my phylums. Go finish making stuff. Right? It could be something like this. Now, bear in mind, this is no endorsement of evolution, not at all. But if you're interested in intelligent design, this backs up what intelligent design says on some of these things. Dr. Vera says in some portions of the Tanakh, Toldot is written without a vav. Right, there's a defective. There's even some rabbinical discussion about why is the vav there, why is the vav not there. Yeah, we call that a vav defectiva, right? So a cholim defectiva, sorry. When it's supposed to be an O sound and the vav is not there. But you can get into some discussions about why is the vav there, why is it not there, what does it mean, is it symbolizing something else? Yeah, that's a nice observation, Doc. So if anyone's interested, especially for you, those of you, college kids or whatever, I would highly recommend that you take a look at, here we go, with the Discovery Institute. Okay. So this guy's really good. Dr. Stephen Meyer. Check out his debates, check out his presentations. He wrote a wonderful book called Darwin's Doubt. He's got a PhD from Oxford. He's no dummy. And they're doing real scientific work over there at the Discovery Institute, basically proving this concept of intelligent design, proving that life bears the blueprint of an intelligence. For example, DNA is the programming language of life. And Darwin had no idea. DNA had not been discovered. He didn't know there was such a thing, that there was information inside of every cell, actual data. This is what the body's supposed to look like. This is what the eye colors are, all that stuff. And that the cells can interpret it. It's very complex, but it's very amazing. And so if any of you ever struggle with evolutionism or not, then I think this is a venue for you to take on. Maybe take a look at this. Or if you know kids in college that are having trouble, they're getting bullied by the idiotic professors who really don't know so much, then this could arm them to fight back. It's the Discovery Institute, right? Maybe Discovery Science made this channel. Yeah, he's got a few more books that have come out since then, but really, really good stuff. So, okay, let's close that. And it was interesting, as I was studying up to teach with you guys, I learned this from Qimchi. I wasn't aware of this interpretation for Toldot, the way that Midrash Rabbah treats it as a derivative. And I thought, this is amazing. This supports intelligent design, this take on things. Now, those guys, they have an old Earth view, right? So, pick your battles. But certainly, the evidence from the Cambrian explosion in the fossil record, it bears out this concept that suddenly on the scene were many, many life forms, not the slow development that we expect from single-celled organism to grasshopper or whatever. Okay, so, and here we have a hint about this possibly in the Torah. I really like it. I hope you guys appreciate and understand what I'm trying to share with you about this. Now, there's another thing that's happening in the text. In the masorah, you see right here it says, okay, these are the generations, or these are this is the story, or these are the derivatives of the heavens and the earth, which Hashem gave to them. Bahiba'am. So this, if you just read it grammatically on the surface, it says when he created them. This is an infinitive construct, niphal form. So, when they were created. When they were created. Okay? The am at the end means they. For you Hebrew students. That's what this guy is. That's the they. Okay? And it's flexible because it's an infinitive construct. But what's interesting, the masorah has a baby hay here. The hay is a different size. This one here, this hay, is little. Look at that. So that's in our tradition. It's small like that. So in the Torah scroll, you'll see it's small like that. So Rashi comments, and again, he's basing his comment on the... the Talmud talks about it as well. Is it Midrash Rabbah? Well, let's just see Rashi's comment. Rashi says, it may be divided as behei, baram. You see, so we're splitting it just after the hay here. That's what Rashi's doing, okay? Behei means with hay, right? Or by means of the letter hay, okay? And then baram, if you read it that way, that means he created them. Instead of they were created, passive niphal, this is now active. He created means them. And Rashi goes on to expound, as it is said in Isaiah 26:4, Ki beyah Hashem tzur olamim. For in Ka, that's by Hashem, his shortcut for his name, is the rock of the worlds, which may be explained to mean taking tzur in sense of form or creator. For by means of beit, these two letters, beit means by means of, yod and hey, of the divine name, God formed the two worlds. That's Rashi's extrapolating that out. Isn't that interesting? So the little hey, it's telling us that using a hey, God created the two worlds. Now, the etymology is a little bit silly from this part because if you keep reading, keep studying what Rashi's saying about it, I don't agree with all of that because, well, let me insulate you for this. It basically says, because look, the two worlds he's talking about are Sheol and the world of the living, right? Basically. Okay. So they're saying, here's the hey, and because of hey, it's got like a boundary. And then there's an opening on the bottom. Whoa! People fall into the hole. Whoa! Whoa! Help me! Okay, so that's kind of the argument that the rabbi's going to make because the hey is the shape. Now, this is silly because this is the Aramaic letter hey. Okay, it's the Aramaic letter hey. The older hey looks like this. I guess maybe you could say they're still falling out. Whoa! Well, maybe that still works. And even that was invented by the Phoenicians, right? So we don't really know if there was an older alphabet than that was in use, right? So I present the argument because on the one hand it's interesting, and we don't have to say by hey. We don't have to say that the hey's got the things falling out. But it could also be something is being hinted here by the small hey. There could be a hinting about two worlds are being created or something like that. Or it could be saying by his name, by Hashem. Or it could be hinting about the Torah. The hey is the number 5, the 5 books of the Torah. That there are teachings, rabbinical teachings, that the Torah Hashem was used even in creation. And that actually gets very interesting when we go on. Remember last week we talked about the Memra? We talked about how in Targumim Neophiti, that every place in the book of Genesis at the beginning where it says Vahi came, and it was so, that in the Aramaic it actually says, and it was so by his word, right? And in some places by order of his word, right? So that Yeshua, Memra, pre-incarnate, is actually there at the time of creation, as we're told in the book of Romans, participating in the creation event. And so if this hey, if I would just argue, let's say the hey instead is telling us it's Torah, right? If it's a Torah, well, who is the living Torah? Yeshua HaMashiach. So that actually all works out kind of nice. Thanks, Doc. Yeah, Doc chimes in. There's a good documentary about, basically about the politics of evolutionism. It's by, the narrator is Ben Stein, good Jewish guy, Harvard professor, and it's called Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed, I think, right? Yeah. That's a good documentary if you want to see why fewer scientists speak out against evolutionism, because when they do, there have been people who worked on scientific journals as editors, and just because they allowed peer-reviewed research from intelligent design scientists to be, this is peer review, this means it's repeatable, okay? It's scientific, it's not playing games, it's not wishful thinking, it's not thumping on the Bible, right? But just because an editor allowed a peer-reviewed article to be posted, he lost his job. So scientists, they lose their jobs because there is an evil force in the world that wants to keep people intellectually in bondage. And so please don't, the worst thing I ever heard somebody say back at a synagogue in the States is this, I don't know who this guy was, but this guy, he said one time, I really love the Torah. It's just too bad you have to check your mind in at the door when you want to believe. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? The contrary. All of the great scientists of the past were believers. They believed in God. The foundations of science are brought to us by those who love to think and use their mind and all the stuff. So please don't fall into that trap. Don't think that it is any kind of a danger, the thought of evolution, even though the silly Roman Catholic Church has made it official church doctrine that evolution is. What do they know? There's a lot of good science coming out now. And really, DNA is the crux of the matter. The fact that God signed his name in the cell, it's amazing. That, and we also have certain cells in biology, like the bacteria flagellum, which is highly complicated. It has an outboard motor with many, many, many parts. And if you just don't have one of those parts, the motor doesn't work. And so how does evolution make a motor come into existence? And so there's just, if any of you are interested and want to talk about this offline, I really have enjoyed these topics in the past, but I don't want to bore anybody with it now. But it's there. It's an answer. There's always an answer. And we should always be equipped and ready, as the brother of the Messiah says, with an answer for the faith that is within us when someone asks. Verse 5. Yeah, you're right, Dr. Ver. In the States, yeah, many universities have expelled professors. It's a very hush-hush. If you have a problem with evolution, it's a religion now. You better keep it to yourself, basically, or you lose your job, right? Which is amazing because many years back, there were several MIT mathematics students, right? Not particularly religious, when they had to take evolutionary biology as part of their mathematics program for just a bachelor's in mathematics, they realized that the theory of evolution is highly problematic because even if you accept the worldly age of the Earth on the order of billions of years old, right? The universe being like, 8 billion or something? Anyway, on the order of magnitude of billions, it's not enough time for evolution. It's nowhere near the right order of magnitude of evolution. And so, these mathematics students, they came together, they put a paper, and they basically proved evolution can't be, you're wrong, because math. So they're just basically showing the probability doesn't work. Because most of the time when you have a mutation in a gene, it's not a good mutation. You don't get Superman from that, right? You don't get, Ant-Man or I don't know, one of the superheroes who they have a radioactive Hulk, right? You don't get the Hulk, okay? Almost every single mutation kills the host, okay? So that's how hard it is to make evolution work, the way that they're saying, non-directed evolution. Yeah, and so the answer they came up with is, there's the multiverse. Right? It's just kind of very fanciful, like someone whose religion is dying, like you're showing someone that their religion is stupid and their prophet was a false prophet, and then they just start throwing stuff out there. Well, maybe there's trillions of other universes, and that makes it all work. But the problem is that also doesn't work because they're not connected, so it still doesn't help. Josh says science is simply the continuous pursuit of knowledge and truth wherever it leads. When blocks are put in the way of science, that becomes ideology, which is not science, right? And so being stuck in the current form of evolutionary biology, it's becoming a fanciful religion. Just as we see, is this hard to imagine? Look what's happening politically around the world today. People are giving up their freedom. No one's putting up a fight. Like, very rare. You're just, all right, sure. Let's just lose our freedom. So, is it hard to imagine that people don't want to lose their jobs? So, scientists will say stuff because they don't want to get fired, right? They're just like everybody else. There are a few brave ones out there doing good work, like the Discovery Institute. So, I highly recommend that, guys, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. It's very edifying for the thinking person, the person who likes to know about science, because you see, it's true. God, through Toldot, his derivatives, he gave them orders, and his derivatives, they went to work doing the stuff. No, Dr. Ver asked, do multiple beginnings explain the multiverse? Multiverse, it's just a silly hypothesis at this point. So I don't really think so. I mean, there's no evidence at all. There's been no kind of experimentation that I'm aware of that's been done that indicate any concept of a multiverse. It's just basically the answer to those MIT mathematics students who said, evolution can't be true, there's not a time. And so someone was thinking, oh my God, how do I save my religion? Oh, I know, multiverse. But as Dr. Meyer points out, unless you have one multiverse feeding into another, right? Like one universe feeding into another, it doesn't solve the problem. You still have the same problem because they're all going to be the same order of magnitude and age. So it doesn't solve anything really. Yeah. So there's no need to explain the multiverse because there's no such thing, right? So that's what I would say. Although I suppose you certainly could go that way if you needed to. I mean, the multiple beginnings, it opens up a lot, right? Okay, so, verse 5. Let's see what we have here. The whole siach, and every kind of, literally this is a shrubbery. Shrub. A shrub. Every kind of shrub, although there are some arguments from Ibn Ezra that it can mean tree, and I've always seen it defined as shrub, so I'm sticking with shrub. Sorry, Ezra. Every kind of shrub, or bush, right? Hasade, of the field. Terem yichyeh va'aretz. Before, so here are the meanings for terem. It can mean not yet, even before, or before, Quinalo. Yichyeh va'aretz. It existed in the earth. And Hebrew students, I want you to notice something, you guys who are doing Hebrew. Notice this is an imperfect verb. But how are we translating it? Past tense, right? Imperfect, translated as a past tense. Yichyeh va'aretz. So even before there was any of those things in the earth, Sforno comments that the terem yichyeh va'aretz, these words emphasize that I copy pasted with European English, British English spelling. Oh no, we got to fix that. I can't let Josh have that one. Emphasize. Z, it's with a Z. We aren't French. Emphasize. By the way, did you guys know that the American English spelling is more English than the English spelling? Did you know that? Because there was a period of history where there were many Francophiles. The British, they really liked the French for a while. And they were emulating the French, and so they started emulating their spelling. So like color became couleur. That's where you get these words like, color. The Americans spell it sensibly, right? And then the British are like, ooh, couleur, couleur. That's because they Frenchified it. They copied from French, and they bastardized English. Whereas America was kind of like in a time capsule, right? We were British, and we weren't so crazy about the French, even though they gave us Statue of Liberty. Okay, great, thanks. But not crazy enough to change our language. And so, yeah. Josh comments that the aftermath of the Big Bang Theory is at least observable, and then interpretations are given. So there's a starting point for it. The multiverse doesn't have any observation as a starting point. It's completely unscientific and fully philosophical. Yeah, good point. And actually, the Big Bang is in our favor. Because the Big Bang Theory... Did you know astrophysicists resisted the Big Bang Theory at first? Why? It was seen as religious. Until then, you see how things change, guys? This is the way of the world, of the ruler of the air that we breathe. The wickedness, the principalities on high. This is how they manipulate. In those days, the scientific view was the universe is eternal. It's always existed. And then the ... from that is therefore the Bible's dumb for saying there is any kind of beginning. And so when they came out there's a beginning, I can't remember who the physicist was, but there's a great quote. This one physicist says, we've been climbing the mountain of science for centuries. This was after they proved it by the red wave radiation expansion, kind of like the Doppler effect, showing that they can see it's expanding, right? So that was a beginning. So this physicist, he admits, we get to the plateau at the top of the mountain, and what do we find? Sitting up there, a bunch of theologians. Right? So he's basically admitting he doesn't want to believe in the Big Bang. So it's funny because a lot of believers, they hear Big Bang and they cringe. Oh, no, the Big Bang's on our side. We won. But now the narrative has been reinterpreted, encapsulated, and then they say, okay, there's multiple Big Bangs. But you know what? We know what it says in the Hebrew, in a beginning. In a beginning, so we win again. We win again, Baruch Hashem. Janine says, has been said Americans speak American, not English, according to the British. Right. Yeah. They're cute with their 40 million peeps. They're cute. Okay, so Sforno comments that these words, these right here, terem yichyeh va'aretz, they emphasize that although all phenomena have been created, this referred to their potential, not to their functioning as they do nowadays. So again, this is very interesting. This feeds, again, his perspective, this rabbi's perspective, into that of intelligent design. Intelligent design basically says there are some things, there are some random things that happen. There's a bit of randomness, right? It can happen. But God created all the genuses, for example, like that. Very interesting. Chol eisef hasadeh, that's his part, had not yet sprouted. Nachmanides comments, note that our verse refers to shrubs of the cultivated field, not of the earth. So he's making this claim, hasadeh, this because the Bible limits it with hasade, it doesn't mean like there weren't jungles out there or something, right, forming, right? But that they cultivated in the garden where man is supposed to manage the garden. There's a whole theme about this, that man, that his role as imager is to be the manager of the estate, right? The gardener, the one who cares for the earth. It's kind of like a real-time tikkun olam if there had been no destruction of the earth even, right? Not really restoration, but like a real-time management of the world. Man was supposed to be involved while God walked the garden. This is the ideal. This is really what we want. And we want, it's a metaphor for what we want in our lives as well, the way that we want to be connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We want to be the gardener. That's the role we should aspire to. I don't mean you have to dig holes in your yard and plant asparagus or something, right? Or mint or whatever. What I mean is metaphorically the gardener. Working this earth. Restoring what was destroyed. Building up instead of tearing down. And that when we do that, then Hashem is working through our hands. The ma'aseh yadeinu, the handiwork, our handiwork, is His handiwork. And that's when we come into full alignment with blessings. Because we're doing His work then. We're fixing broken people. We're feeding hungry animals. And sometimes maybe you hug a tree. Yeah, I'm okay with tree hugging. If that's the thing that you want to do, then all right. You know, the sages talk about, they believe, there's teachings that the trees actually communicate with one another. And that they actually communicate with us as well. You can find this in Midrash Rabbah, that the trees, they have, it's amazing because if you like Lord of the Rings, well, you got like the ants walking around and stuff. I don't know if this is where Tolkien got this from or not, but that there's something happening with the trees. And also the sages say that the tree is a metaphor for man, right? That ultimately, all this stuff about the trees clapping their hands and all this sort of stuff, that this is man. Man, this is man's tikkun, man's restoration to being at the place we're supposed to be at, that of the gardener. The one who takes care of even the little, chol eisif hasadeh. Pardon me, it's the siach, the little shrubs of sadeh, the eisif, these are the herbs of the field, right? So things that might be of importance to humans because we consume them or whatever, but also things that are of importance to the Creator, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that we're told by the Mashiach that He cares even for the sparrows of the field, right? One thing I hated growing up in the South, I liked the South, right? But one thing I hated was kind of this callousness towards animal life, right? There's kind of hunting is real big, right? And so there's this hunter mentality. And there's kind of like, if you care about a suffering animal, sometimes this happens, right? There's something wrong with you, right? This is not Torah. This is not tikkun olam. And it's not manly. All right? There's nothing manly about not having compassion for suffering that's in the world. That is the antithesis of being the gardener. The gardener cares for the garden. He cares for his sphere of influence. He roots out the weeds. He takes care of the plants. He puts the nitrogen in the soil, all that kind of stuff. And that really is the ideal role that we're supposed to be, being with good symbiosis with nature and with fellow man. Not like the Islamofascists who start fires in Israel. You can see the enemy at work. It's the total opposite of what it is to be a gardener. Continue on, Telem yitsmach. This is before tzamach is to sprout, right? Just before they sprouted. This can also mean to flourish, right? Like we hear that the righteous man will flourish like the date palm, right? It uses this verb, yitsmach, to flourish, to sprout, to bloom, to blossom for flowers. Although perek we usually have for flowers, they like bursting out. Ki lo himtir Adonai Elohim al haarets, because Adonai, God, had not caused rain. This is hefal form of matars to rain, himtirs to cause to rain. Did not cause rain al upon haarets, the world. Ve'adam ayin la'avod et ha'adama, and mankind or man ayin. Sorry, my mouse is moving a bit slower than my ayin means did not exist. Man did not exist. La'avod, to labor, to till, et ha'adama, the earth. But what's interesting, while we have this gardener theme happening, there's a little hint that's happening here as well about avod. You guys remember one of the meanings of avad we discussed in the past? Avad. Here's the verb avad. Avad. This is a good word to know if you want a Hebrew word for today. So those who don't know the alphabet, Sheen is your letter. This one here, right? Sheen. Learn that letter. Oh, boy, that's seen. Okay. Close enough. And avad is the verb I want you to learn today. Avad. Avad. So avad means to labor, serve, and eventually worship. So, of course, in context, the text is not saying to worship the ground, right? Context is king with Hebrew. It always helps us. It's a mistake. It's a mistake in analysis. If you've ever seen teachers do this, to look up a Hebrew word and then say, look, it means all these 10 things, right? And so I've seen pastors do this before. So they'll be like, also with Greek, though. So, oh, it's this and that, as if that verse is telling you to do every single facet of that word. No. The word usually has one, maybe if there's a double entendre, two meanings happening in a particular verse, and it's nailed down by the words around it. Okay, that's the context. It is fallacious to say, all these things, and look, avad, it also means to dig a ditch, and so if you're serving Hashem, you got to dig a ditch. You got to get out there and do physical labor. This is fallacious. You see? So when you see these kind of teachings where someone is just going through all the definitions that a word has and saying, look, and they're acting like it means all those things in that verse, that's not how language works. I've seen this many times. I'm sure some of you have seen that kind of teaching. Now, it's okay to do a word study and to examine all the meanings, right? And then you can kind of see, well, which one makes sense here? Right? Or which ones, sometimes the Bible will do a play on words, right? But it's not okay to say it means all of those things all the time. I've seen this in Hebrew roots a lot. They get a little bit excited about the Hebrew, they learned a word, and now they're, they want to, in reason, this is called too clever by half, right? They're trying to be a little too clever by half. Like, it doesn't work, okay? So just be aware of that when you see teaching, so you can kind of put your shields up and, okay, wait, no. It doesn't mean all of those things all the time. It has, just like in any language, like in English, get. The word get. I can say, did you get the M&Ms from the store? Right? Okay, and it has a certain meaning, right? But I can also say, all right, I just told you about how proper hermeneutics work. Do you get it? Means understand, right? It doesn't mean both those things at the same time. It doesn't mean you have to get it and take it from somewhere, right? The context is king, always. And Hebrew is pretty good with syntax. It pretty much nails down what we're talking about. But it's also interesting to see, while we're talking about the gardener theme, maybe the text is hinting to us about worshiping Hashem. There was no man yet to garden the ground, and we were not there yet to serve him.
We're able to create content due to generous donations by viewers like yourself.